Today we're going to be covering simplifying expressions. This is the first example in our presentation. We have 9y plus 3 minus 4x minus 2y minus 3x minus 5. The first thing we need to do is we need to identify the terms, that is the variables that have a number in front of them or just numbers on their own. Those are terms. For example, 9y is a term. Is a term that has a variable of y and has the coefficient of 9. Positive 3 is a term, doesn't have a variable with it, but it's a term of its own. Negative 4x is also a term. It has a variable of x and the coefficient is negative 4. That's the number in front of it. We have negative 2y, that is also another term, and it has a variable of y and the coefficient is negative 2. Looking at this one, we have negative 3x, which is another term with a variable x and the coefficient is a negative 3. Lastly, we have negative 5. So in order for us to combine like terms, we have to identify the terms that have the same variable. So if you look at this, I'm going to circle or highlight the terms that have the same variable. So if I look at 9y and I go right across, any of the other terms that have the same variable would be this one, right? This also has a y. So I'm going to go ahead and circle this one, the same color. And so I'm going to combine them. How am I going to combine them? I'm going to add them. Notice that we have a positive and a negative. That's okay. That's really just 9 minus 2y. I'm going to go ahead and get another color and see if I can identify any other like terms. So if I circle this positive 3, I want to find any other terms that do not have any variable. So if I go across, that would not be a like term because it has an x. That also would not be a like term because it has an x. I need to find the number without a variable. So I see that negative 5 does not have a variable. So these two are like terms. And lastly, one more color. Trying to get if I can have any other like terms. So if I look at this, I have negative 4x and I have negative 3x. Those are like terms. They both have the same variable. So I'm going to go ahead and combine those. So combining like terms. Let's go ahead and rewrite this. I'm going to rewrite the first ones that we matched together, the 9y and the negative 2y. So that gives me 9y minus 2y. I'm going to put them together. Okay. Then I'm going to go ahead and put the other terms together, which are the second set of terms that are alike, the positive 3 and the negative 5. Lastly, I'm going to go ahead and put the other two terms which are like the negative 4x and the negative 3x. So keeping this in mind, remember we want to combine these. So combining these means that I want to add or subtract these two terms because those are like terms. I want to add or subtract these two, and I want to add or subtract these two. So looking at this, 9y minus 2y, that becomes 7y. Okay, so it's really 9 minus 2. Here, 3 minus 5, well, I have more negatives than I do positives. So if you look at this, if I were to match this kind of to the side, I have 5 negatives. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I have 3 positives. Looking at these, this is what we call zero pairs. So a negative 1 plus a positive 1, that becomes 0, right? A negative 1 plus a positive 1, that is equal to 0. A negative 1 plus a positive 1, that is equal to 0. So what am I really left over with? I am left with this right here. I couldn't pair them up with any positives. So really, I have two negatives, two negative 1s. Well, that's just negative 2. So if I want to combine these two, that would just become negative 2. Now I have a negative 4x and a negative 3x. They're both negative. That means that I have a negative 4, negative 1, negative 1, negative 1, negative 1. That's negative 4. I have 3 more negatives. I don't have any positives on the side to make any zeros. So really, how many negatives do I have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'm left with just 7. So this is really a negative 7. Now, that was just combining the coefficients. Don't forget that you have negative 7 x's because they were all a negative 1x. So if they were all a negative 1x, my response is a negative 7x. This gives you negative 7x. If you look at this expression now, we have 7y minus 2 minus 7x. None of these have the same variable. So therefore, this is a simplified version of this expression. I can no longer combine these because 7y doesn't have any other term out here that also has a y. For a single constant term, there are no other single constant terms that I can combine it with. And for negative 7x, there are no other terms with an x that I can combine it with. So my final answer is 7y minus 2 minus 7x.